In the beginning of the story, a girl is crying and pleading with her father, questioning what she must do for his love. She wonders if he would love her more if she were like Jeanette, if he would say her name with affection, look upon her with warmth, and embrace her, promising never to cast her away. Her father remains stern, dismissing her pleas as foolish. The female lead reflects on the fierce contempt in his words, noting that the following statement was even crueler than his scorn. He declares that he has never once considered her as his daughter. We see a baby, suddenly bewildered as a vivid memory of a romance novel pops into her head. It was a novel she once read after a customer left it behind, a story with a tacky and childish title. She wonders if the sudden recollection is because she shares the same name as the princess who was executed in the book. Frustrated, she wishes the thought away. The baby's nanny approaches, handing her a tingle and scolding her for dropping it like a clumsy oaf. The baby internally fumes, thinking that babies drop things all the time. The nanny admonishes her not to start crying and causing a ruckus, instructing her to play quietly with a toy. The baby thinks to herself how the tingle was rolling around the floor and is annoyed that it was given back to her without being wiped down. She questions if she is being dismissed because she is a reject princess. The tingle slips from her hand again. The nanny, exasperated, wonders why she keeps dropping it, mentioning she has a lot of sewing to do. She puts the tingle back in the baby's hand. The baby wants to protest, thinking she doesn't want it and questioning why she would want to play with a rattle at her age. The nanny wonders if the baby has gotten tired of the toy and then lifts her, placing her back into the crib. The baby wonders if the nanny is going to the housekeeper and thinks to herself that she shouldn't come back if all she's going to bring is another rattle. The baby flails in the cradle, making baby sounds. She watches her hands wiggle, noticing how chubby they are, and reflects that it will take some time to get used to. She recalls going to bed after taking a sleeping pill, but when she opened her eyes, she was in this body and world. She questions how this is possible and how she suddenly turned into a baby. To make things even more bewildering, she has been told that she's a princess. Just then, another maid enters the baby's room. The baby reflects on how this girl always bursts into her room without warning, thinking it's inappropriate. The maid hands her the tingle, saying that the housekeeper mentioned they don't have the budget for new toys and instructs her to play with it. Taking a seat and beginning to sue, the maid warns the baby not to start crying because she won't do anything to calm her down, claiming she's terribly busy. The baby sobs inwardly, feeling the maid is heartless and mean. She reflects that not all princesses have the same fortune. Having been an orphan in her past life, she initially thought being reborn as a wealthy princess was great, but now she's disappointed to be a princess who is ill-treated by everyone. She remembers her father in this world as a ruthless bastard and begins to feel chills. The baby reflects on what she has gathered from the maids. Her current home, the Ruby Palace, once housed the emperor's concubines, his harem. However, on the day she was born, the emperor slaughtered everyone in the Ruby Palace. Her mother, a dancer invited to a banquet at the palace, caught the emperor's eye, became pregnant with his child, was forgotten, and died, leaving her behind as an infant. The emperor has kept his distance from her, his own daughter, ever since. So who raised her? She thinks humorously that it was trial and tribulation, but in reality she was raised by the maids of the Ruby Palace. The baby, enraged about her father, mentally curses the emperor for abandoning his wife and child like this. She reflects on what a dysfunctional family it is and how the emperor could leave a baby in a palace where such a brutal massacre occurred. The first time she heard about the atrocity, she had nightmares for days. But nightmares are one thing. She was more frightened of the emperor, whose face she has never even seen. She questions why she had to be born as a princess with such a life and what kind of lousy fate she is cursed with. She fears that if the emperor suddenly loses his mind again, he might rush over and kill her, just as he murdered everyone in the palace that day. The baby shivers at the thought of the emperor possibly killing her and decides to think about something else. She recalls hearing that her birth mother gave her the name Athanasia. She muses that it's a pretty extravagant name for a rejected princess. Unfortunately, she shares the same name as the unlucky princess in the romance novel Lovely Princess. She believes her mother gave her that name in the hopes that she would live a long and healthy life under the emperor's care. But she can't help but remember that in the book, Princess Athanasia dies a tragic death at the age of 18, by the emperor's own hand no less. The thought feels so ominous, and she can't shake it from her mind. Suddenly, the maids enter in shock to find baby Athanasia awake. They comment on her not being asleep yet and discuss whether they need to stay. One maid mentions Lillian making a big deal out of it and complains about her. They consider it a bit of a break but worry about the baby suddenly starting to cry. One suggests rocking the cradle to help her fall asleep quickly. Baby Athanasia reflects inwardly, feeling frustrated. She thinks about how they are all stuck at the Ruby Palace and pleads silently for them not to mistreat her. She defends herself, noting that the way they talk makes it seem like she cries all day long. She challenges them to find another baby as quiet as she is. She mentions Lily's concern about how little she cries. Athanasia reflects on how the palace maids likely dismiss her as a royal of no consequence because the emperor never seeks her out. She admits she doesn't feel sad about it. In fact, her goal is to live the rest of her life as a forgotten princess. She imagines living in luxury if she were to run off with a few decorative pieces from the room and ask them to forget about her. A maid covering Athanasia with a blanket comments that His Majesty isn't interested in her at all, but acknowledges that she has a good life because she's a princess. Athanasia agrees with the maid's observation. Athanasia reflects on her life in the palace, acknowledging that she receives 3 square meals a day and has a nice, cozy bed. She acknowledges that while she may not be the luckiest person, being a princess still offers a pretty good life. She plans to grow quickly so that she can eventually swipe some gold from the palace and make her escape, but first, she needs to outgrow the confines of her cradle. She recalls a maid encouraging her to eat her food and get exercise so she can grow up quickly. The maids talk amongst themselves, expressing their fears about their precarious existence in the palace, where the emperor holds absolute power over their lives. They lament being assigned to such a place and discuss rumors of a ghost that appears in the kitchen every night, which fills them with dread. They worry about meeting a similar fate one day. Athanasia listens to them and reflects on their words. She agrees with their sentiments, feeling that she doesn't want to live in a palace like this either. Determined, she clenches her fists and resolves to make her escape as soon as she has collected enough money to get away. Athanasia happily plays with a golden ball, thoroughly enjoying herself. Lily notices and asks if she likes it that much. Athanasia responds in baby voice, expressing her delight. She internally desires the golden ball, thinking how pretty it is and calling it to herself. Lily joins in the play, making Athanasia giggle. Athanasia reflects that she has now grown enough to easily crawl around the carpet. She marvels at the opulence of the palace, believing all the gold and jewels around her to be real. Lily seems to think that Athanasia simply likes sparkly things. Lily offers to bring Athanasia another golden ball if she gets tired of the current one. Athanasia inwardly appreciates Lily's generosity, thinking of her as a veritable gold mine. Athanasia reflects on her life in the Ruby Palace, describing it as a glittering wonder despite having few possessions due to a small household budget. She plays happily with the golden ball, calling it her precious and joking about whether she's drooling. She muses on how peaceful life has become in the palace. Initially nervous, she now believes the emperor has truly forgotten about her, as she hasn't heard anything about him in months. The maids who were once anxious with her are now more relaxed. Athanasia attributes her swift growth to good food, regular exercise, and ample sleep. She eagerly anticipates the day she can walk, knowing she needs to save up for her getaway fund as soon as possible. Athanasia begins to notice that her room decor is disappearing one by one, wondering if Lily is removing them to prevent any harm. She then realizes it's time for a diaper change, feeling embarrassed but resigning herself to it. Later, Lily reads a book to Athanasia about mages, mentioning that among them, the magicians of the tower are the most powerful. Athanasia is surprised and reflects on how she's heard about mages in this world, confirming that she's not just in a foreign country, but in another world entirely. Pointing to a passage in the book, Lily continues explaining that the magicians of the tower possess abilities so potent they could easily destroy an empire. Athanasia becomes fascinated, expressing her desire to witness magic firsthand. Lily continues to explain to Athanasia about the magicians of the tower, emphasizing that they must freeze their own hearts to prevent their emotions from clouding their judgment or using their powers for personal gain. She shares a story about how a magician of the tower wiped out one of the previous dynasties of Obelia. Athanasia reflects on her determination, resolving to ensure that she gets to witness magic with her own eyes one day. Athanasia notices a picture and points to it, prompting Lily's excitement. Lily identifies the figure in the picture as Athanasia's father, referring to him as Your Highness. Athanasia is shocked and reflects internally, expressing disbelief and anger towards her father for abandoning his wife and daughter, and now being involved in who knows what. In a fit of rage, she slaps the photo of her father, angrily calling him names. Lily reacts with surprise at Athanasia's precocious behavior, acknowledging her spirited reaction. It says here that the current emperor of the Obelian Empire is a hero who punished the demon-worshipping despot who ruled over the land with fanatical tyranny. Athanasia becomes enraged, rejecting the notion vehemently. To her, he is the man who cruelly butchered women in the Ruby Palace and completely abandoned his daughter. She questions how they could portray him as a wise ruler in a storybook for children, finding it unacceptable. Lily suggests revisiting the picture to reveal the emperor's name, but Athanasia internally refuses. She doesn't care to know or have any interest in the emperor, whom she sees as a despicable person. Lily shows Athanasia a picture and identifies the man as His Majesty the Emperor and Athanasia's father, Claude de Alger Obelia. Athanasia is internally shocked, questioning Lily's words. She wonders why her father shares the same name as the Emperor in the book and feels uneasy about the coincidence. Lily continues, stating that Athanasia's full name is Princess Athanasia de Algerobelia, and confirming that she is the Emperor's only daughter. Athanasia reflects on the situation, feeling unsettled by the fact that she shares the exact same name as the princess in the book. She can't shake off the feeling of unease, and a chill runs down her spine, causing her to reflect nervously on the strange coincidence. Athanasia reflects on the story of Lovely Princess, a popular online romance fantasy novel. The book features a lovely princess named Genet, the second daughter of the Obelian Empire. Genet is described as a beautiful princess with a kind heart, beloved by the imperial citizens and admired across the continent. Among those who cherish her deeply is her father, Emperor Claude. In the eyes of the public, Emperor Claude is hailed as a hero who saved the empire. However, in reality, he is portrayed as a ruthless man who killed his own brother, the rightful successor to the throne, to seize power for himself. It was Genet who, through her kindness and love, managed to soften the heart of this otherwise merciless emperor. Claude discovered Genet's existence when she turned 14. Genet's mother, Claude's former fiancée, had angered him, leading to their engagement being broken off. She passed away after giving birth to Genet. Genet's aunt, wanting to protect her niece from Claude's wrath, kept Genet's birth a secret and entrusted her to the household of Duke Alpheus, a trusted family. Initially cold towards his newfound daughter, Claude eventually softened. Genet, as the female lead of the story, possessed extraordinary beauty that even the icy Claude couldn't resist. Ultimately, she lived happily ever after with a supportive father by her side and married the best husband in the empire, the son of Duke Alpheus. Athanasia expresses frustration and anger over how the first princess Athanasia was treated in contrast to Genet. Athanasia, who was the same age as Genet, was immediately known to Claude when she was born. However, instead of receiving care and attention, Claude cast her out to the concubine's palace and neglected her completely. Thrown into an environment where she had to be cautious and fearful every day, Athanasia grew up as a timid and vulnerable princess. This timid and shy girl, Athanasia, had her first encounter with her father on her 9th birthday. Drawn by the lights and sounds of a banquet, she ventured out from the Ruby Palace late at night and unexpectedly met Claude in the